Good afternoon. It's Kirsten here for another Spa Business Break on Thursdays. Thanks for joining me. So my topic today has to do with really giving you a fresh perspective on some of the things in your business that might be driving you crazy or that you're feeling a lot of stress about. And that is the perspective of, have you considered that perhaps business systems in your business that maybe you don't have right now could be the ultimate self-care for you as a spa owner? So I think that we all can identify with self-care in our business. I mean, it's basically what we've been preaching for as many years as we've been an esthetician or owned a spa. But unfortunately, we sometimes don't make the connection for ourselves as far as what self-care is. So we a lot of times get stuck in the perspective of self-care is, going for a massage or going for coffee with a girlfriend. Hey, Lisa, nice to see you here. Maybe it is, maybe it's a little bit more deeper personal work that you consider self-care. But I'd like to invite you to look at this perspective as far as using business systems in your spa as a method to care for yourself consistently. So here's the thing, and I know you can totally relate, is that you've got a lot of moving parts in your business. You have marketing, you have the financials, you have the guest experience. If you have a team, you've got a team, and all of that. All of the stuff that is involved with having a team, hiring, onboarding, training, ongoing coaching, and having to deal with all the pieces in there with your team. So yeah, you got a lot of balls in the air, and most spa owners have come up the ranks as a spa owner to become a spa owner as an esthetician. And so a lot of times we as spa owners don't have the experience of systems because we've been in other spas, other salons that don't use systems. That's pretty chaotic. So what we've done is it's been a lot of the blind leading the blind. But I'd like to suggest that you already have some of these systems, but the problem is that they're all up in your head. And we can't systematize something like your marketing, like your hiring, like your training, like your financials, if it's always all up here. It's crazy making. So I would love to suggest for you, if it's all up in your head, is that it's perhaps, and you're feeling like, I cannot keep on top of all of this. And as far as keep on top of it, like maintain it too. I'd like to suggest that you would want to create some systems in your business so that you take that pressure off of yourself. So a system is essentially a process, and it's a process that is repeatable by everyone in your business. And the whole point of creating a system is that it creates repeatable results. So with systems and creating those repeatable results, they need to be documented. That means you need to get it out of your head and onto paper and into either a staff handbook or protocols, treatment protocols, or the guest experience, or customer service scripts, customer service processes. Because once you have it all written down, and particularly taking it out of your head, like brain dumping it and starting to organize, all of a sudden you have created a system that starts creating repeatable results. The other piece about creating systems in your business, when you start writing it down, you can often see where the gaps are. When it's all in our heads, there's just too much going on, and it's really difficult to pinpoint where the breaks are happening in the mental systems that we've created. So really, as far as creating systems, I think most spa owners that are coming to me, it's because they don't know quite how to get those systems out onto paper, and they don't know how to organize them. So that's part of what I do when I'm working with clients, is getting the concepts of what's in their heads out on a piece of paper, and formatted so that it's a process that's easy to understand. It's a process that's repeatable and creates repeatable positive results. I know many of you have systems in place. They're all in your head, but they keep creating repeatable negative results, whether that has to do with never seeming to be able to hire the right people. Like they either turn out to be duds, or they seem to be working for a while and then things fall apart. So when we have them written down, it's much easier to see where those gaps are and to be able to strategize and brainstorm about how to close those gaps. So creating systems, it does take time. I'm not going to lie about it. Creating systems is also not going to be the absolute fix for everything. It's part of the fix. It's a big piece of the fix for a lot of businesses, but it doesn't mean that you just set it and forget it. That's not how systems work. And that is really speaking to the next piece, which has to do with your leadership. So you get your systems set up, you find out where those gaps are, you close them with policies and procedures. But then what you need to do is you need to continually nurture those systems. So last week I kind of went on a little bit of a rant about spa owners' expectations. Kind of one of those expectations was hiring a team so that they can just kind of go off and do what they want and not necessarily be at the spa. This is where that ties in. So you can create your systems, but if you just kind of ditch the spa and your leadership and you're like, oh yeah, I got these systems in place, they can follow them, they can read the manual, that's not going to work either. You have to be there to consistently nurture those systems and make sure people are following them. We're dealing with humans when we're working, and it's just kind of one of those things, human nature. When the cat's away, the mice will play at work. So you do, as a leader, still need to show up, be there for your staff, and be eyeballs on making sure that those systems are being followed. So that, otherwise what happens is if you just leave it, you're like, oh yeah, I've got systems, I created systems, I got a manual, I've got protocol books, I've got a staff handbook. Yeah, but are you nurturing those policies and procedures? Do your staff, are they following them? Do you know for sure if they're following them? And the other piece is if they're not following them, what's your process? That's a big, huge bonus for having a staff handbook that has a disciplinary policy in it. When you have all of your systems documented, you've trained everybody in them, you've nurtured and coached your team along for that, and then somebody still maybe goes down the rabbit hole and does something that is not appropriate, and you need to have that discussion, then you can activate your disciplinary policy that's been taught and shared with them, and they've agreed to it, they've signed it when they were hired. So now you have something to fall back on. But if you didn't have a disciplinary policy in place, all you had is verbal, it's like I've told you multiple times, it makes it a lot different than how you can handle a staff member. So systems, you need to nurture them. But they're still not going to absolutely, I'm not going to say that once you have systems in place, nothing is going to go wrong. That's not true. There are still places where things can go sideways. However, when you have systems in place, the likelihood of that happening dramatically decreases, and you have documentation to support any kind of disciplinary policy that you need to invoke if that happens. So what kind of systems are you looking at? You're looking at having a marketing system, a financial system, and that includes tracking your numbers, goal setting, keeping your team up to date on what the goals are, tracking their goals as the month goes along. Do you have a system for that? Or do you just think, oh no, I've been tracking the numbers, but when if I'm asking you do your team know the numbers as far as their goals, you may not have a system in place to be able to support that. So that's one of those little pieces, those little gaps that can happen. You need a system for pricing. That's another piece. When a lot of spas open for business, they look to their competition for comparative pricing and they make their own prices accordingly. It's a really easy way to get yourself into trouble with your pricing once you realize that you're actually not covering expenses. You need a sales system in place, especially if you have a team, because a lot of times estheticians don't have great sales skills. So you need to take your sales skills, document it into a system to create repeatable results for them. So you need a sales system for recommending services, a sales system for being able to recommend retail products. I already talked about having a staff system. So that's your hiring, onboarding, training system, and ongoing coaching system. What does that look like for you? If you're having problems with finding staff, keeping staff, hiring quality talent, then you probably have a gap in your system for staffing. The guest experience. What is your ideal guest experience? Is that documented? Does your team know about it? Or has it all been verbal and there's all sorts of places where your team is missing the mark in the guest experience? The way that you can tell if your guest experience is working is to look at your client retention. If your client retention numbers are low, particularly your first visit retention, that is a huge red flag that you have problems with your guest experience system and probably a staffing system. And then, of course, the guest experience system. So that would include customer service scripts. That would include protocols for your reception team, for your assistants, for any support staff. All right. So yeah, there's lots of systems to be put into place. I don't want you to panic though if you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have any of those systems in place. You definitely do need to prioritize. So what I recommend is if you have a team that we start looking at systems as far as protocols, staff handbooks. Those are usually the basic. We start at the basis. Once we've created those, then we build on top of that and create an ongoing create a training and ongoing coaching system. So who already has systems in place? Maybe you've got one or two systems in place. Maybe you've got them all in place and you're rocking it. Let me know. What have you got? Maybe you've got nothing. That's okay too, because once you realize like where the gaps are in your business, if you realize I don't have anything systematized, then now you know where to at least to start looking as far as creating change in your business. So for me, in my business, systems changed everything, particularly when I had a team. The first thing I did was I created my staff handbook. It took me a long time. I created it from scratch, but that became my spa business Bible. Everything was created in there as far as what I wanted my company culture to be, what my expectations are for job descriptions, and then all the normal stuff as far as when the spa is open, what your policies are for your team. That kind of thing. So yeah, that was when everything changed. I did have to let a couple of staff members go, but they were compromising the business. So it was time for them to go. They didn't really want to live up to the standards anyway. So it was an awesome, well, we'll see you guys later. It's not working for you. It's not working for me either. So it's a fantastic way to clean house as well. All right, so that is my Facebook Live for today to give you a fresh perspective on business systems. It doesn't have to be dry and boring to create them. When you look at it from the perspective that it is self-care for you, because you're not running around like a chicken with your head cut off all the time, you don't have all the business information in your head, that relieves a huge amount of pressure off of you. The other piece of this is that when you have your business systematized and it's all documented, if you decide that you want to sell your business, you have a really solid value to your business by having all those systems in place, creating repeatable results for that new spa owner. So when they're looking at your business, that is a huge perk because they wouldn't have to go in there and do that themselves. Okay, so what's happening this weekend? We've got the Vancouver Spa Show going. I will be heading to that on Saturday and hanging out with a girlfriend Saturday, and I'll be at the spa show on Sunday. Who else is going to that particular spa show? I know lots of spa owners and estheticians come up from Seattle, from Washington State. I think a couple come up from Oregon even. I know we get lots of Alberta estheticians and spa owners too. So if you see me at the spa show, come over and say hi. I sometimes am not good with faces, especially coming out of social media with everybody's profile pictures, because sometimes it's hard to tell. So if you see me, come say hi. I'd love to connect and, see eyeball to eyeball and have a hug. All right. Thanks for joining me for Spa Business Break on Thursday, and I will be back next week.